Hi everyone, hope you're doing great. So sometimes what happens is कि you give more than one class to a HTML element. तो उस case में you will have to combine CSS classes to give an styling to that HTML element. So today we'll see CSS class combinators and we'll also see what are pseudo classes. Basically HTML DOM elements की states होती हैं. For example, आपने किसी HTML DOM element पे hover करा, तो you want to give styling according to that. So for that you use pseudo classes. So let's get right into it.
So these are the topics we are going to take a look today. First we'll see what are class combinators and then we'll see pseudo classes. Let's go to VS Code quickly. I'll create a new file index.html, right, and I'll just start the live server also. Let's just quickly complete the boilerplate code. We have HTML, then we have head, then we have title, then we have body, right? So let's just discuss what are CSS class combinators first. So what happens is sometimes you want to select a particular class by making a relation. Let's say you want to select all the paragraph tags inside a particular div tag having a class of element. So in that case you'll use a CSS class combinator. You are actually deriving a relation between two classes, right? So through that div tag you can access all the paragraph tags inside that and you can give classes to them, right? So let's just see an example and understand this more quickly, more clearly, right? So I'll just add a div tag and inside this div tag I'll add 4 paragraph tags, right? Let's just add some text bit inside these paragraph tags. First, second, third, and then fourth, right? Also I'll add another paragraph tag which is adjacent to this div tag, right? And again I'll add another paragraph tag which is adjacent to this paragraph tag. So actually these all of these div and this 2 paragraph tags are siblings of each other, right? If you remember the DOM tree video, we discussed that how this div and this these p tags are siblings of each other because they're coming inside the same parent which is body, right? And on the same level on the DOM tree, right? Let's just name it sibling. I'll just add some text sibling inside this paragraph tag and let's just give it a text of next sibling, right? So we are actually having 4 types of CSS class combinators, right? So let me just go back to the screen. So we have the descendant selector which is space, right? So let's just try this descendant selector. So what I'll do is let's say my use case is that I want to give all the paragraph tags inside this div tag. Inside this particular div tag, let's give it a class of element, right? So the div tag which is having a class of element, all the paragraph tags should have a certain background color, let's say blue background color, right? So I'll just add CSS here only, right? You remember how to import different how to import CSS from different methods from the CSS introduction video. So this is one of those methods. So I'll just start writing this dot element. So by this dot element I've selected this tag, right? So what I'll do is I'll actually add a space and then p, right? So what has happened is that I have actually combined this dot element and p tag, right? So this represents that all the paragraph tags inside this element dot element class will have a certain property, right, or properties. So I'll just give it a background color of light blue. So you can see this first, second, third and fourth p tags are coming inside this dot element, right? Dot element div, right? So similarly they are now having a light blue background, right? Okay, so what would happen if I let's say I add a div, I'll add another div tag here and inside this div tag I'll add another p tag and I'll name it not direct child, right? So what is happening right now is that every element, regardless of the fact that if it's coming directly inside this div tag or it's not coming inside this div tag, is having this background color, right? So every p tag is having this background color right now. What if I want only the p tags which are directly the children of this div tag to have this background color? I don't want this not direct child to have a background color of light blue. I'll just add this CSS class combinator. This is actually called a child selector. I have selected the child. So all the direct children which are p tags of this dot element class have now got the styling properties which I've defined here. So we discussed about space, we discussed about this arrow bracket. Now let's discuss the next class selector, which is actually a plus symbol, which is adjacent sibling selector, right? So what I'll do, I'll just add a plus selector here. So you can see this sibling is actually adjacent to this div, right? It's coming, it's of course it's a sibling of this div, and it's coming to the just the next person of that div, right? So this is actually just the next sibling of this div tag, right? So similarly, this is also called the adjacent selector, adjacent sibling selector. So by doing this, dot element div, whatever adjacent p tag it's having, will have this property, these properties which I've defined, right? So you can see this next sibling have not got any you can say properties, right? So this is another CSS class combinator. Let's if I want all the siblings of div tag, all the next siblings of this div tag to have these properties, I can use the tilde symbol. This is another class combinator, and the name is general sibling selector, right? It will select all the next siblings of this class, right? If I add a p tag here before this div tag, see what happens before. So this p tag is actually not having any properties. So all this tilde does is all the siblings which are p after the dot element will have these properties. So this is about the CSS class selectors. I'll again give you a recap. So first we are having a space selector which will give the properties, the properties which I've defined here, to all the p tags which are defined inside this dot element class. So inside this, all the p tags will, including this not direct child, right, will have the properties. If I convert it to this selector, it will select the direct children of that class which I've selected, right? So you can see that I have now selected this. So okay, now if I want to select the next sibling, I can just add a plus, and you can see only the next sibling is selected, not all the siblings, only the next sibling. If I want to select all the next siblings, I can use a tilde, right? So this actually selects all the siblings, right? So I can, now what I can demonstrate is that I can select this p tag only using this CSS selector. So let us do that. So first I want to go to this dot element, right? Let's reach it. So dot element, right? And inside this we are having a div tag, and inside this we are having a p tag. So if I give any background, any property, let's change the color of this text, not direct child, to blue. So color blue. So you can see I've selected this using the CSS class combinators, and I've changed the color blue, right? So this is how this is all about CSS class combinators. Now let's quickly take a look at CSS pseudo classes. So now let's take a look at CSS pseudo classes. So pseudo classes really give you the whole power of CSS, and they are really powerful tools to make your website look dynamic, right? So sometimes let me just give you an example. So sometimes what you want to when you hover a button, you want that button to change its color so that it becomes intuitive that it's a pressable button, right? So let me just give you a quick example showcasing this. I'll just use a HR tag. I'll just use a div tag to define a button, which should I not do, but for like educational purposes I'll do here, right? So I'll just give it a class of button. I can give it any class. I'll just name this class as button, right? And then here I'll just select button dot button. So CSS pseudo classes can give you special event effects, and you can select nth child and first child. So we are currently seeing how you can achieve special events, right? So for that, let me just give you a small example. So I'll just say the border. Don't worry about the CSS properties as of now. We'll be covering these properties in the upcoming videos, right? Just look at how I'm selecting particular classes and how I'm applying pseudo classes, how I'm combining the classes right now, right? Or classes, or you can say elements, right? So I'll just give it a border of 2 pixel solid gray, right? And I'll just give it a background color of light gray, right? All right. I also want to give it a width of, let's say, 2 rem and height of 2 rem, right? Let's just give it a width of 4 m. So you can see a button kind of thing has appeared here. I'll just, you know, in VS Code you have this feature, you can select a particular color. I'll just make it a little more lighter, right? Okay, so right, so this now looks like a button, right? Let me just beautify it a little more. So 10 pixels. You can see now it has taken a shape of a button, right? All right. So what would happen if you want to hover a button? So first my mouse should change to a pointer, right? And the color should become a more darker version of this light gray, right? So for this I want to define a pseudo class which is hover, right? If I hover on this should change its properties. So for that we have a pseudo class called hover. I'll just select this button class and I'll just give it a pseudo class of hover. So how did I give it a pseudo class? I defined a colon and then the pseudo class name, that at what time this class should take place, these properties should take over. So on hover I want to give this properties. So background color should change to a bit darker version of this whole color. So I'll just, you know, select a darker version of this color here. Let me just select this color here, right? So you can see let me just quickly also change the cursor to pointer here, right? My mouse cursor should become a pointer because it's a button, right? So here you can see these buttons, when I hover on these buttons, my mouse cursor becomes a pointer, indicating that it's a button and it's a clickable button, right? So let me just hover on this now. I'll just refresh this page. If I hover on this, you can see the color becomes darker and my cursor becomes a pointer, right? Giving you a feel that it's a button. But if I click this right now, it actually doesn't look like it is being pressed, right? So for that I want to change the color when I click this button also, right? For as long as I have clicked, it should change its color, right? So all right, so for this we are having another pseudo class which is active. Active is used when you click something, right? So active is used when you click something, and these properties, the properties which I'll define here, will take over when I'll click this button. So let me just also, you know, change. I want to give it a more darker version of this color, right? So I'll just give it this darker version. So normal color is this. When I hover, it changes its color to a darker version, which is this. Now if I hover and click, you can see it is changing colors as I'm clicking. So it appears that the button is being pressed, right? So this is how you can, this is the beauty of CSS pseudo classes, is you can define those events which you want to apply, and you can, you know, give specific properties on those particular events, right? Similarly, we are having properties for, you can say, link tags, right? So if you link is actually defined as an anchor tag in HTML. So you can, you know, define links in this way. And when I click this, let's say Google, if I click this button, it will take me to google.com or whatever link I have provided here, right? So what all pseudo class does this have? It definitely has a hover class. So you can see my pointer is being changed. So if I select this A and I give it hover, color is equal to red. Now if I hover this, you can see color becomes red, right? Its color becomes red. Similarly, we are having A active. So as long as I've clicked this, color yellow, I'll just give it a color yellow. So as long as I've clicked this link, the color will change, so of whatever yellow green color I have defined here, right? So all right. So then we also have a visited here, a visited pseudo class, which defines if I have visited this page and I go back in my browser, the color will not be blue. It would actually be the color which I define here. This will not work in this particular live preview extension. It will work in your browser, right? Because again, this is not a browser, this is just to give you a preview of your website, right? So right, so let's just say color pink, right? So again, this will work in your browser, right? So these are some, you can say, pseudo classes which are generally used. Hover, active. We also have a focus class which is generally used on focus pseudo class, which is generally used on you can say the forms, right? The input fields and the buttons in the forms, right? So this is about the special effects of CSS pseudo classes. Now let's discuss if I want to select the nth child of you can say a div tag, right? So let's say this is my div tag which I'm targeting, and I want to select the second child. So what would be the second child? This will be the first child, this will be the second child, third, fourth, fifth, and this div tag is actually having only 5 childs. You remember this from the DOM tree video, right? So I want to select the second child. So for that also I can use you can say a pseudo class. So for this I want to select element, and inside that element I want to select a particular a direct child of that element, which should be a paragraph, and that should be nth child, and inside this I want to give it the child number. So I want to select the second child, and I can give it a property, let's say background color red. So you can see this second is only having the background color red. If I change it to 1, first will be having the background color red. If I change it to 3, this would have a background color red. Now fifth, there are no more paragraph tags, so no p tags which are you can say more than 5. It's only having 4 p tags, so naturally this would not work, right? So at most I can provide till 4 here, right? If I select div here, right, I select div here and I'll give it a first child, so that should give a, if I select a div here, let's say div here, first child, that should change the color of this not direct child, right? So because it's coming inside this dot element, right? Let me just do it, and what I can use here is the first child, right? And for this I don't need to give this. So okay, so right, so this should change the not direct child. Okay, but let me just debug it and show you why it's not working, right? So what we were trying to do, we were trying to select this not direct child. Now I have added another div tag here. Let's just say it's not directed child, second not direct child. Let's just say not child. And what I want to do is what actually happens is that pseudo the nth class pseudo CSS class counts the number of siblings. If I say element the direct child of div and I say 6 here, then it should select this child. If I say 7 here, then it should select this child, because see, this is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Now I have added another ASD div tag here just for debugging, right? So what would happen is first now I have to change it to 5, right? Because first, second, third, fourth, this is the 5th child, so nth child is 5th, right? And I want to select the element, the div tag inside this element, right? If I select 6 here, this would select this div tag, which is the 6th sibling of this inner tag. So this is all about CSS pseudo classes and CSS class combinators. Hope you were able to understand whatever the concepts I taught you in this video. And again, these concepts are really important to make dynamic CSS. So before diving into the CSS properties, we need to know how we can work with those CSS properties, right? So hope you're liking the videos. If you're liking, please like and subscribe the channel. Thank you, and see you in the next video.